Another journey, and today's journey involves a testament to resilience and self-discovery after losing a 20-year job and navigating a divorce. Our guest embarked on a transformative path. This path led him to authenticity and a deep desire to connect with others, creating this podcast, which he will no doubt will share with us, where you can listen to it, Life's Checkmark. Through this platform, our guest offers comfort and understanding to those feeling alone on their journey. This quest for authenticity extended to his role as a father, allowing our guest to forge deeper connections with his children. Alongside family, he enjoys the companionship of an amazing dog and finding peace in nature through hikes and outdoor adventures. I'll leave the guest to talk about his journey more because it's his journey, not mine. But I welcome John to the journey.
Yes, thank you for having me on here. I
You're,
appreciate it.
you're welcome. Now, obviously, journeys begin, and I always like to make the icebreaker. The earliest memory that anyone can remember is you was born into this world, but we're not going to go into that extreme. But can you tell us your earliest memories that kick-started your journey when you was younger?
Yeah, so I'm going to start where I was about 19, 20, and then I might jump back a little bit further than that, just give
That's
you
okay.
some kind of context. So uh, around 1920, I moved out of the house. I was living by myself, and I have a sister as well, and she wound up joining the Navy around that time. So I got a knock on my door. It was my mom, and she's like, "I'm done. I'm leaving your dad," and I was shocked. So I found out that they were not married for a very long time, that we were together as a family. I did not know that. We lived in the same house the whole time I was growing up. And I found out from my father that he told me, he said this, I was 8. He said I was around 8 years old and I asked him where his ring was. And he said, "That's your mom and and I'm your dad, and that's all you need to know." I don't remember that, but he reminded me of that. So looking at this, I never seen, uh, I never wanted divorce in my life, right? And my whole dad's side, they all wound up getting divorced. And so it was always instilled in my head not to go through something like that. That was nothing I ever wanted to take on. So that's the earliest part of my journey I can remember for what led me to where I'm at today. And it got me to the point where, I did wind up going through a divorce about 4 years ago. We were married for about 15 years. I met her around that time, when I was 19, 20. Also wound up losing a job in the same year. So I lost a job first, and I wound up trying to figure things out, what I was going to do. I looked at it as a downside at first, like I always wanted out, right? And this job decided to close its doors around COVID, but not due to COVID. They just weren't profiting. About 60 people walked out the door in 2019, around October, and that was production. So I was in the shipping, receiving, logistics area, and they had me stay till May of the following year because we cleaned out the place.
Yeah.
So I was like the last person to make sure everything was gone in a sense. I was one of the last 3 to walk out the door. So it was kind of heartbreaking to see them all leave, and then heartbreaking to see it go from a running manufacturing company to a shell. And I dove into I went up diving into life insurance, which was completely different, commission based, not a 9 to 5. And I was looking for something different, something where I felt alive, right? Because I was starting to get stuck. I felt I was in a mold. I was going to work, coming home, taking care of the kids, taking care of their mom at the time, and taking care of the house and everything else, and then just reliving the same thing over and over again. And I wanted to change. So when I jumped into life insurance, I wound up learning, like, connecting with entrepreneurs and trying to share the information I knew. So I created like YouTube videos and got that out. And I kind of enjoyed playing around with all that. And I wound up uh, interviewing about 10 entrepreneurs. So what I was trying to do was share the information I had because it seems like more entrepreneurs would understand what I had to sell. It wasn't your typical, term life insurance is what I was working on.
Mm.
So I got to know 10 entrepreneurs. I did Facebook Lives. I stopped all that because things were shifting at home around that time. It was like January of that year after I lost my job. And I couldn't understand things. Behaviors were changing. There was lack of communication. Things weren't normal. Again, I was lost. I was not sure what was going on. So I listened to a podcast, funny enough as it is. And it was January. I listened to this podcast. It's called Dad's Edge. It's still out there. I listened to it like 2 or 3 years prior to that because I was interested in trying to be a better father, try and just step up a little bit. For whatever reason, I wound up listening to this podcast again. I don't remember the episode, but I do remember that they had a men's group, I would call it, where all these Zoom calls were going on with all these men that were part of this group, finance, relationships, I don't know, workouts and all that stuff, anything you could think of, different days, different times. So I joined the membership because I felt like I needed help. And
Mm.
I didn't know if I could get help from these guys. I don't want to say I had like these friends around me that I could really talk to. I was always that person that didn't share my relationship. But now that things were shaky at home and I couldn't figure it out, I was going crazy in my head. I was looking at every little thing. So I joined and I never jumped on a Zoom call for the simple fact that since I didn't know what was going on, I wanted to try to spend as much time as I could with my kids, just in case, right? I wasn't sure. I wound up connecting with like 4 or 5 men, and they're not around me. I've never seen any of them in person. I would consider them like a lifeline in a way. So if like I called one, they didn't answer, I would call another one or text or Facebook message, whatever worked. Because we get lost in our heads, and not just in moments like this, but all the time, right? We always think the worst is going to come. And it's exactly what I was doing, like, because I wasn't getting answers from anybody at the house here. So I had to reach out for support. Uh, One guy was in Canada, another one is in Virginia, another one I think is in Florida now. So I mean, like I still have contact with these men, but there's not much of a reason for us to talk except for just, hey, how are you doing? Just catch up. Now, some of them went through what I went through. Some of them were going through it. Some of them are there to help others because this is like their expertise. And the one guy I remember, I would Facebook message him a lot, and he wouldn't respond exactly right away, but he responded. And I consider him a coach because he gets paid for the work he does to help men get through divorce, help relationship at home with their wife, or whatever kind of problems they're having, breaking the communication barriers down to kind of help save marriages if he can do it. So when I Facebook message him, he would basically say words like breathe, or don't look at all the little things. And then there was a shift too where I had to understand that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So I had to accept that too, and that took a while to take that in as well. But he was very open to sharing things, and he also shared me, I don't know if you know Alison Armstrong or anything, but she's into like the feminine masculine energy stuff, and how people communicate between sexes. And so he shared some of that stuff with me, to list her stuff and somebody else, some books out there too. So that was a whole new world for me. And so January, I tried to start working on talking to men. May is the day that, May is the month that the word divorce came to me, right? Again, I never really wanted it. So I held on as long as I could to make sure that when it came, that she was willing, like that's what she wanted, right? Like I wasn't going to say the word because I tried, hey, let's do therapy, etc. Obviously it takes two
Mm.
to work on a relationship. And if one doesn't want to do it, then it's not going to happen. So that never happened. Around April, May, that guy, I consider him a coach. He had a masculinity course. And so I took it. It was a day for a day for 4 weeks. So it was 4 times. It was me and another guy and then him. So he shared communication, all that stuff. And it wasn't really about to save my marriage, but it's about how to understand women, how to understand us as a man, and how we can evolve in this world and become better. So I was able to understand more about communication skills with, women think more emotionally, we think more logically, how does that interact? So I can still carry that stuff today. He said in the first 2 sessions, and I'll be honest with you, I was a mess. Like I was getting to the point like something's coming right in my head. So I was sobbing and everything. And then the third or fourth session, he's like, you sound better, you look better, you seem more confident. And I don't know if it was the sessions. I don't know what everything was that took place for me. But I got to the point where when she said that, I was willing to accept it. And, because I was tired, I was ready to move on. I mean, I lost 20 pounds. I couldn't sleep for days. I was trying to figure everything out for a long time. But that's what led me to the part where I was able to accept it. Now, there is a statistic out there where 10 men commit suicide every day from divorce. And it doesn't say that it happens right away. It happens down the road as well. So, I mean, that's a lot of guys that are committing suicide because it's a ripple effect, right? I'm still having stuff after, not mentally and stuff like that. It's just like, financially, supporting other people. And it's still nerve wracking, right? So, because I have the kids and stuff. So there's a lot still going on after you go through the paperwork.
Because you got to think of the children is part.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm lucky enough I get to see them. And whereas a lot of men don't get to see them. So that's a lot to take on too.
Mm.
Now I get to see them like half the year in a sense than I would have if we were still together, which sucks. But I can't change that. And so I don't know, I can't say I ever had those thoughts of committing suicide because, I have kids to live up for and show up. But I understand how it can knock a man down to that level because they feel like they don't have support. They don't have anybody that's going to listen to them. And so I would say to everybody that's listening or watching is to reach out to somebody. It's probably going to be the guys that you don't know, the people that aren't around you, that aren't loved ones. So if it could be something like this group, or it could be me, or it could be you, somebody that is willing to just listen at least, right? Because we have to lean on somebody. And that's what I encourage other people to do too, is just, focus on yourself and just move forward. Like it is devastating, especially if you love a person for so long and then things just happen for whatever reason. And for us men, we get blindsided a lot because the woman tends to escape. They tend to find a way already that they're going to leave because they already planned it out for months. It's just how it is. So, whereas as a man, like we don't even think about that. We're still here, but and that's why it's a hard hit for us because we never see it coming. We're not prepared. And that communication could have been presented to us in a different way from the woman instead of just like walking down the hallway saying one word and we're supposed to understand what that is. So that's where the communication gap could be as well. And that's why I believe too, like we all should figure out how we communicate with one another. But that was a hard point for me. So I lost a job in 1 year in the same year. So it was two life-changing events that I never would have thought in my life I would have in the same year. And I had to figure myself out after, the word divorce came up. I'm like, what am I going to do? Can I handle it? So I had to put myself in that place. I lived a little bit by myself for a while before we actually moved in together. So I had to look back and go, I was doing it then, I could do it now. It's going to be hard because things are more expensive. The times have changed since then. And now I have kids and everything.
Mm.
So I had to get in that. I shared that I worked on 5 areas. So it was like mentally, emotionally, right? Physically, and then spiritually, and the relationships, and then business and finance is how I put them in categories for myself. And I did it exactly in that journey. And that's just what worked for me. It might not work for you, but I would definitely recommend that you try to work on yourself mentally first.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had to for me, I had to do that. And so I worked on myself with a morning routine. And it shifted a little bit, throughout the years, but it got me to a point where I was able to take in some positive motivation. I was able to, start writing what I'm grateful for, meditate a little bit, stuff that I never would have done before. But now I have to accept things and I have to look at things from a positive side and know that everything's going to be okay. Even though things might look bad, everything's going to be okay. Somebody else is out there wishing they were in my shoes, even though I think it sucks right now, right?
Yeah.
It's just the reality of it. Like, somebody is living on the street and they would rather be in the house that I'm in and struggling if that's what the problem is, right? Um, So definitely mentally and emotionally, and try, emotionally is like, controlling your emotions. Don't overreact. So like you don't take your things out on the kids or somebody else around you, and it's not don't hold it inside, but then you talk to somebody about it, somebody different, so that you're not getting angry, you're not getting upset. You don't come home from work and get pissed off at them because they're in front of you. It's not them, so you leave that stuff in the car, you kind of breathe, you just let it out.
Hmm.
And then yeah, and that controlling your emotions is a huge thing. So I mean, a lot of us men, we tend to build things up, get frustrated, we might yell, we might break down and cry one day because we didn't know that we were holding it in so much and not sharing it. So it's a lot of weight to carry.
Hmm.
So I would definitely recommend doing that. And then for me, the physical side, I had a, or I still have, I have a gym set down in the basement and it was given to me years ago. And I'm like, this would be great. I never really used it. And then divorce happened. I got free time because I was by myself. And I'm like, okay. So I started working out like 5 days a week for about an hour or so. Just used a book, going by that program. I got results, but I wasn't getting the results I wanted. So what did I do? I did something completely different and I hired a coach to help me, right? And here's the start of me hiring coaches and mentors and stuff throughout my life too that I never did before. But they are at another level than you in a certain area. And so you can they bridge that gap so that you can become better quicker in a sense. So he gave me the program. He gave me like to, make sure I eat this kind of food, track it, weigh yourself or whatever. We would meet once a week on Zoom because it was online, even though he's like an hour or so away from me. But I was able to use all that equipment in the basement, and I got results that I wanted. I I kid you not, I was around 160. I was 180 first, and then I had the divorce, so I lost 20 pounds there. So I was 160. He got me down to like 139. I'm like, dude, this is not where I want to go. Like it was great, but I was like, this is work, man. This is and so he got me to a point where, okay, now we can build up, right? Now we can, get muscle on you and make you look better and everything. And that so it was going through the hard part. And this is like everything, right? Just going through the hard part to ease up and get things maintained and right and set in stone. So I mean, there was a lot of programs he gave me through the next 6 months because that's how long I worked with them. But it got me to a point where I was tracking things. And now if I shift a little bit, I know I can go back to all that and just fall back into the routine of doing it for some, if I fall off for some reason. But it's a mental shift as well. Like working out stuff, you get rid of the stress and everything, and it's discipline. You keep your body moving. It's a great way to not just exercise your body, but the mind as well. So you're in that process of completing something. So now you can carry that process somewhere else. Like if it's cleaning up your house because it's a mess, right? You can carry that through and basically tell yourself, I'm not stopping until it's done, and just let it be that. So like that was my next area. And so I share this because this is about 2.5 years ago that I started that, and I'm still continuing to do that. Like that's one of my main things. around that same time, um, I started working on myself spiritually. January of that year that I hired him as a coach, woke up one day and I said, thank you, God. And I don't know where God came from. I had no idea. And for a while, I was saying just thank you, right? Thank you for being alive. And it took me a while just to do that. And that I heard from another podcast too. The guy was like, it's gonna be hard, but wake up and just say thank you. And so I did. It took me a while to make it a habit. I woke up every day to say thank you. And again, it's just to say that you're alive, right? You're able to just live through this day, no matter how bad you might think it is. It's actually better than not doing anything. Um, so the word God came up for whatever reason. And so I reached out to somebody I know locally that does go to church. He said, oh, you're probably just curious. You don't, he didn't really like pressure, no, nothing. He's like, he said, here's a Bible I recommend. It was a Bible that it's not in print anymore. So I had to buy it from eBay, somebody else selling it. And it was a Bible based off of like a father sharing the message to their kids. Uh, so it's pretty good. I like it. So I can relay some stuff back to my kids if I want to. So I read a few and then I started going to church and, it's been 2.5 years now. I can't say I go to church every weekend or anything, but I go more often than I ever did in my whole life. I believe in a higher being. I believe in the universe as well. Like things happen for a reason, right? There's a reason I'm talking to you. We don't know what that is, and maybe it's just us sharing the message to somebody else that's listening, and that's all that matters, right? So I was able to work on that, and now I'm taking my kids too, and it's not pressure to say, hey, you have to believe in this, but it's a door opened up to say, if you ever need to, it's here. And when I was growing up, I do remember that we went to church a few times. It was nothing crazy. The Bible was brought to our house from a church, and that was it. Like we never really stayed consistent with it. I know my mom's side, they're pretty hard on going to church, but she never stayed up on top of it. And so like I knew about it, but we just never really learned about it. And I can't say I know all the scripture either, but it's just that, and that's why I love going to church because I can understand it from somebody else sharing the message to me in a way that I should be able to understand in real life. So that's my third area. And then relationships for me, and it's not the intimate relationships, but it's just relationships with like people like yourself. Like we're having this discussion, this conversation here, where we get to share a message. And it's all basically for me, it started through podcasting. And now it's led to me like speaking events and all this other stuff I never saw coming in my life. But that's how I started to work on my relationships is just have guests come on. I get to listen to them, ask them questions, get to understand how they got through things. And I could touch more on this podcast a little bit, but that's where I focus on. And then obviously my kids. So like I want to show up as a father when I have them, even when I don't have them. Like I'm here to support you in any way possible. So feel free to reach out. And that's how I want to show up. And then business and finance is me creating a coaching program with the podcast because I hesitated for a little while and I don't want other people to hesitate, and a podcast community, video clips for people. And so like that is like my last area. And I don't feel like I could have worked on that first, even though some people be like, oh, you need money, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I understand that. But I don't think I could have gotten this far if I didn't work myself mentally, physically first, at least, to get prepared for, things that could still come up. So that's what allowed me to get to where I am today is just going through all that and kind of carry a little bit of each thing along the way. And I still try to grow in all those areas as well. But yeah, and then for the podcast, I started about 2.5 years ago. It's Life's Checkmark. It's basically kind of like yours, people coming on, sharing their journey in life, and just to see what struggles they had and how they get through it. And hopefully it reaches that one person that needs to hear it and helps them, right? Or they can share it with somebody else. I mean, that to me, that's what it was all about. It was all about that. not to build an audience, not to monetize it in any way. Yeah, things are shifting for me, but it was not my focus. And so now it got me to the point where, like I mentioned, I was on a stage in January sharing a little bit about my divorce. I hosted my own event with other podcasters. And then in May, I'll be speaking in Dallas, and then I'll be speaking again in August. Like, I never thought I'd be speaking. I am not the same person I was 4 years ago. I am not. Like, I'm an introvert. You're hearing a lot from me now because, as we stated prior to this, like, this is like a message, right? And
Yeah.
if I'm into this and you're okay with it, and the listeners are okay with it, like, this is what they need to hear. And I agree. Like, I'm the same way. When somebody comes on my podcast and they just want to like let it rip, let them go, man. Let's sit back and let that, because I mean, they're here. To me, it's a stage. You're not
Yeah.
going to kick them off stage unless
No.
we're out of time. So that's how I look at it. And that's how I created the podcast. And it's slowly growing, but if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't become the person I am today either, and become better and stronger in all these other areas as well. Now, I do consider myself an introvert still. I was just at a live event yesterday. I only need to know like 3 to 5 people. All right. I want to have conversations with them. I don't need to talk about weather and politics and stuff with every person that's in there. It's not who I am. So then I'll take those few connections and connect with them later, and maybe we'll do something like this where it's like a 20-minute Zoom call. But what a great way just to find people and go in rooms you've never been in. Um, David, I know that was a lot. I mean, so
It's okay.
if you,
But the
yeah,
fact what you're saying about divorce,
sure.
men as a rule like to hold the mask up to their face a lot because they don't want to show that emotion.
Yeah,
Now you was talking about how you was feeling for so long, and I can relate to that because it is a very powerful subject. It does bring your emotions down to a point where you can't be, you know, I'm not saying this harshly against anyone, including myself, but you can't show the emotion so people around you, who's immediately around you, feel the force of your depression, whatever you want to call it, because you can't handle it.
yeah,
And people who love you now might feel the effect of why, and they feel fan bad because they feel like they can't do anything to help you.
yeah,
And you can't admit to them, oh, it's not you. But you try and tell them, but they always will automatically say, it's my fault, it's my fault. It's like, no, it's before you, or it's not even you. It's just about getting them to realize it's not them.
right, exactly.
But that is just powerful hearing that because I can hear certain things how he's talking, and it does ring true for so many elements, and that's what I like about it. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, it goes, and your children. Do you feel like your children, if they came to your podcast, say in 10 years' time, or if they listen to it now, do you think they would be proud of how far you come as an individual, or do you feel like they will still be learning about you as they get older?
Yeah, great question. I feel like they would appreciate everything I'm doing. Even though they know I have the podcast and they see clips every once in a while, and so I get a little bit feedback, but not all the time. Now I did. I went to Podfest twice, which is a huge event for podcasters, and I drugged them along one year. And even though they didn't like it, but they got to surround themselves right in that kind of environment. They also went with me when I held my own event with other podcasters. And so they appreciate that more because it was smaller, but they were able to be in the same room, listen to the, speakers and myself, speaking on basically what I went through a little bit, and with the podcast as well. And it's funny you asked this too, because like, I still have a full-time job. And I do podcasting on the side and everything else. But they're like, it's just this week. They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I've been at this job like for almost 4 years now. And so I'm a warehouse supervisor in a manufacturing company. And they're like, oh, you are, so it's like, I'm like, you guys don't ask me. So like, I'm not going to just show up and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. No, I mean, like, and so like, they didn't say this, but I felt like they were like, wow, like he's doing that. Now I know I don't look at myself like that, but I felt like that they were surprised to like I guess at that level in a sense in their eyes, right? So I would say yes, they would be um, proud to see where I'm at, and this is why I continue to do what I do. Like I don't want to quit because if I quit, then they see that I quit something, and then they would probably quit something later on in life as well. And like, oh, in their heads, it might be like, oh, dad gave up for whatever reason, right? So that's why I continue to do what I do as well. Just keep showing up.
Yeah, it's just amazing to hear because, you know, like I said, podcasts is the thing now. You get opportunities. Yeah, some people get the opportunity to go on radio. I've even interviewed people on radio, but when you do podcasts, it's more close, it's more personal. And I just believe if you're showing something, even if it's to a small, like you said yourself, a small percentage of people, it's making that difference.
Exactly. That's why we keep doing what we're doing, David.
And, I got a full-time job, and I'm struggling, not intentionally struggling because
Mhm.
it's a new job, but I find podcasting helping because I want to help people. And like you said, and you said with your podcast, it's about reaching out to those people where if you know you're not doing something good elsewhere, you can do something good out other places like podcasting, like YouTube shorts or whatever. You're making that small difference, and that's all it takes.
That's all it takes. That's right. That's your passion. It's your desire, and you just love helping.
Yeah, and I don't know how many podcasts you've done, but I started mine just before COVID came along.
Okay, so you've been doing it longer than me. So
Yeah,
I'm about 2.5 years, 147 episodes, I think.
I'm 170 something, but
There you go. See,
that's only because on the basis of how I space out my podcast. If I do
gotcha.
it in one go, you don't want to bombard people with like, you got a new podcast. So I try and space it now. But so it's just, I started on the basis of me just, like I said, COVID was coming along. It was just on the cusp of lockdown everywhere, including the UK and America.
Mm.
And I just started innocently talking to people, and it was weird. Started interviewing people that I followed from a TV show.
Wow, that's good.
And then I started interviewing someone from Australia, and I don't mind quoting this podcast, The Bucket List Guy. He's from Australia. And then I interviewed people who are involved in sports. I interviewed people involved in TV, as in the voice of TV, the people saying next on ABC, that sort of thing. So I just started up because it was a hobby. Now I do this in my spare time now, and I'm enjoying it. It's still a hobby, but it gives me something positive to do because I like hearing stories.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
you have often heard when you're on a freeway, motorway, you go on a journey. Hence why you go on. The podcast is called A Journey. But you even said it yourself. You had to go off those diversions, those turns to get where you are now.
That's right. Yep.
So it shows about, it says there, on personal pursuits, your passion lies in aiding others, particularly in helping them find their voice through podcasting, fostering empathy, connection among individuals. That connection's a key because if you don't have that connection, how can you help them?
Exactly. And so I do a 20-minute like intro call, right? So before I would have you come on my podcast, we would connect like this for 20 minutes and I get to know you. Then we can schedule an episode. That's how
Yeah.
I work and build
And
my
I have got
relationship.
that on mine. If anyone's watching, listening, there's an option for a 15-minute talk, then a 30-minute talk. So that's what confuses people. And so I have to say, if you want to talk to me first, do the 15-minute one. But the 30-minute, I usually say is 30 minutes, but it can go on longer because that's how passionate people can be. Now, like I was talking earlier, I interviewed a guest the other week, month, I think it was now, a well-respected actor in from the TV show on Netflix, Squid Game. He was only a guest in one episode, but he was passionate about what he believed in. I loved his passion. I respected when he messaged me a few hours later, like I said, about I can't have that interview out there. And I don't go into major reasons in other podcasts why I did it, but I respected him when he told me. So I said, okay. And he said, I want to be interviewed again. And this time it'll be better. And I said, okay. And I interviewed him a few hours later, a few days later. And you can tell he still had the passion, but he had to constrain himself. But at the same time, he was passionate. And that's what many people are like talking about acting, talking about their careers, talking about anything. It's a way of them releasing that built up, and you said it yourself about emotions. It's a way of men, especially when I talk to men, it feels like when they talk, it is that weight off their chest for a bit. Females will act like, I'm not condoning females in any way, but females just like to talk, and when they talk, and it's like in the supermarket.
Right, right.
With men, it's more passionate because it's helping one another. It's about the alpha male helping the other alpha male to build the better alpha male.
Yes, I agree.
So obviously your podcast and website, can you share that with us? Because people will be wanting to know where can they listen to your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast is Life's Checkmark. It's a giant orange check mark with a guy walking up it. It's on Apple and Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else you can listen to a podcast. You can also go to lifescheckmark.com. There you can find information on not just the podcast, but also everything I do with podcasting. And Podcasters Hub is my community. And that's where I have podcasters come in, whether they have one or not. And we just meet. Right now it's bi-weekly. And there's a whole bunch, it's a school community, so there's a whole bunch of classrooms going on. And then there's some special guests I have coming in that are other podcasters too. So that's on there. And then the video clips I do for others, that's also on there. So lifescheckmark.com.
And that'll
Yeah,
be in the description below. So thank you for sharing that.
sure.
Now, the last ultimate question is, you've come so far in the years since you've developed your life and how you're developing now. But people are still going on that journey, and you touched upon it when you was talking in the way you did. But what would you say to people on their journey to help them move forward?
If they were going through something I was going through, I would focus on remember the words of life happens for you, not to you. So don't beat yourself down. The other words I mentioned too was breathe, right? Even if it's not the divorce or anything too, but just life in general, just take a deep breath, 3 deep breaths, just relax and know that you got this. Everything's okay. The other thing would be no matter what it is, reach out to people. And like I said before, it comes down to mostly the strangers that you don't really know, because I think they're going to guide you in a more of a different direction, a better direction. Uh, you can look at that as the same way as hiring mentors and coaches and stuff, to get you to a better level as if it was mentally or physically or business wise, anything like that. Because, we can work so hard to get somewhere, but if we had somebody next to us that's already gone through all that, I mean, what a game changer that was, even just with the fitness trainer I heard, something along those lines. And the last thing I could probably go on forever, but I'll just add in being grateful, right? Be grateful for what you have. Like I said before, other people out there wish that they could be in your shoes. And even though you might think where you're at is really bad, it's probably bad because you feel like you should be somewhere else, right? And you know, you're not late, you're not behind, you're exactly where you need to be. And so this is your own story, this is your own life, this is your own journey. And so just accept that. So don't look at the people that are so far ahead of you because you feel like you should be there too. They had a different path, that was their path. And they might hit something hard later on in life and fall back.
Mm.
There's a lot of businessmen I'm sorry, a lot of businessmen I met that have lost a lot of money, lost relationships, and they come out so much better on the other side, but they have to fight through that. Like you have to get through that hard time to get something so much greater. And if we let that hard time hold us back and curl up in a ball and cry and be depressed forever, you're never going to come out on the other side looking so much greater.
It's very true.
Yeah, find the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I agree to that. And on that, I'd like to say thank you for sharing your journey with us. Like I said, the link to your podcast and everything is going to be shown in the description before. But John, thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Our thanks to our guest for a wonderful journey. And now a couple of messages to share with you.
Hello, I am Amy Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later.
Music by Erica R. from Pixar Bay.
By Tim Parsons. The narrator is Kate Barton. Director and producer, Darren Street. Tim Parsons would like to thank family and friends for their support with the paramedic Chris venture. The series is dedicated to the memory of his father, Reverend David Parsons. Copyright Tim Parsons 2020, all rights reserved. Unauthorized use, copying or sharing of this audiobook is strictly prohibited. This has been a Voice Reel studio production for Tim Parsons.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I've just been listening to the Paramedic Chris children's books on audio again, and I just love it because they've given a tribute in one of them to my dad as well, who passed away a few years ago. I love audio books, and it's great to walk around, and it's great to sit at the computer, if you're out jogging or wherever, to listen to them as well. All 4 of the Paramedic Chris children's books are available on audio book from Amazon. Go and take a listen to them. You won't be disappointed. You'll hear what happens when a community pulls together and supports one another. The best thing is to pop over to my website, paramedicchriskidsbooks.org, and you'll see the links on the shop page. Keep safe, everyone, and thank you for being you.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.